Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting off with some problems with the connection and the color and the picture of everything, but hopefully soon it will correct itself as it did yesterday. Okay, it says here your connection is unstable. Please wait while we try reconnecting. All right, let's start learning. Parak Vav Mishna Beis. Now, quick introduction. Okay, I'm back. Quick introduction. And that is that although the Torah forbids us to work the land during Shemitah, but let's say something that grew in Shemitah already, if you want to reap it, you want to process the crops, the deraisa from the Torah, there would be nothing wrong with doing that. It's just that there are certain restrictions on reaping that the Torah does place, and the Chachamim extended the restrictions to processing the harvest also. And we're going to be working with the opinions that say that the problem with processing the harvest is talking about where you had a field that the person who owned the field did not allow people to come in. During Shemitah, you're not supposed to hold other people back from coming into your field. Essentially, you're supposed to make it hefker, make it ownerless. And if you illegally guarded the field, so the grain that comes from there, the Chachamim said, you cannot process it in its normal manner. You have to do it in an unusual manner. Because of the fact that it was protected illegally, it's produce that comes from a field that was illegally guarded. Therefore, one has to use a unusual manner of processing. That is going to be the halacha that our Mishnah is going to be focusing on. So the Mishnah reads, "Oisid b'talish b'Surya," in the land of Surya, which we will talk about soon what that land is. But Surya was an area that was not part of Eretz Yisrael, according to the Torah. Shemitah therefore did not apply there. The Chachamim did extend certain aspects of Shemitah to the area of Surya. And one of those things that we extend to Surya is, so the Mishnah says, Aisin Matalish for Surya. One may work with detached produce in Surya, but not while it's still attached, which would mean that, again, we're talking about in Surya, where there was a field. In Surya, you're not supposed to work the land during Shemitah. You're supposed to treat it like in Israel, that the field that you have, what's growing from there, you can't hold other people back from going in there. If a person did, and now we're dealing with the grain that came from there. So the point here is that one may work with that person. Okay. Right. To go ahead and work and to go ahead and process the grain of that field, whether it's you're the owner, I'm assuming, or somebody else, but for sure somebody else. We're talking about going into that field and working in that field. So the halacha would be that if you're going to go ahead and process that grain that grew in that field, so we say if it's detached, so then we say you can work there regularly. You don't have to employ any kind of unusual way of doing it. But if we're talking about working in a field that again was illegally protected, and the grain there is still connected to the ground, now you want to process the grain that's connected to the ground, that you may not do. And the point here, according to the Baratunura, is this kind of situation where the field was illegally protected. It's the produce from that field. You're coming to work in that field. So we say that when you're going ahead and working in that field, meaning the person that the owner of the field, we suspect him of not keeping Shemitah properly, and he didn't allow other people to come into the field. Nonetheless, if you now want to come and work in that field to process the grain, so if the grain was so we're talking about processing grain that is detached, you can do that in a regular fashion. If it's connected to the ground, you cannot do that in a regular fashion. Now, when we talk about this area called Syria, what area are we talking about? So the Yad Avram explains like this: Syria comprised large parts of the area which today is Syria. It included such places as Aram Naharayim, the birthplace of Abraham, generally taken to be the northern part of Syria east of the Euphrates, and Aram Tsova, which is northern Syria west of the Euphrates in the area of Aleppo. So that's the area we're talking about. Now, the first thing that the Bartanura points out, and the Yad Avram brings down here, is although this territory was conquered and annexed by David HaMelech, King David, it did not gain the legal status of Eretz Yisrael. Only lands conquered and annexed to the land of Israel after it was fully conquered and sanctified became sanctified as a result of further conquest. Syria, however, was conquered by King David before all of Eretz Yisrael proper had been conquered, and was therefore not sanctified. So from the Torah law, there's no Shemitah. Thus, under biblical law, Shemitah does not apply in Syria. However, the Chachamim did give it a certain status for Shemitah. Why did they do that? However, in order to prevent Jews of Eretz Yisrael from drifting into Syria to escape the Shemitah restrictions, the rabbis imposed some Shemitah restrictions on Syria as well. Consequently, working the land was prohibited in Syria. So the understanding of why you can't work the land during Shemitah in Syria has to do with the fact that it was a preventative to make sure that people during Shemitah didn't leave Eretz Yisrael to escape the restrictions of Shemitah. However, processing detached produce was permitted, as above. They did allow that. This would not be allowed. This, I believe, would not be allowed in Eretz Yisrael. Whatever we're talking about, you're allowed to do in Syria during Shemitah, even when Eretz Yisrael would not be permitted. And again, we're talking about, as we'll see, processing illegally protected produce. But whatever the case of produce is, the point is that although they didn't allow you to work the land, they allow you to work the produce. Why is that? This was in order that the poorest Jews could find some agriculturally related livelihood close to home, not need to migrate farther out into the diaspora. It was really a chance to give poor people a chance to make a living, a chance to work and to make some money. And they could go to Syria. Syria wasn't too far away from Eretz Yisrael. And in Syria, they'd be able to work the produce, or the detached produce at least, as we see, and be able to make some kind of a livelihood. Another point of allowing the detached produce to work with is because if we allow you just to do that, if you can't work the land fully, just basically work in detached produce, we're not afraid that people are going to leave Eretz Yisrael during Shemitah just for that. And therefore, at the end of the day, the halacha by Shemitah in Syria is you can't work the land. You can work you can process it. You can't plow the land, work the land, plant the land. That's for sure not. And when it comes to processing the things that grew, and the problem here is that it grew in a field that may have not been worked with, may have grown on its own properly, but the person who owned the field and allowed other people to come in and take it. And therefore, there are going to be some restrictions, midrabanan, rabbinic restrictions. And the restrictions are, you can't work while the produce is attached. While it's not detached, you could work with it. Working on attached produce, reaping, for instance, is forbidden to the same extent in Syria as in Eretz Yisrael. Thus, just as in Eretz Yisrael, it is forbidden to reap from an illegally closed field unless the method of reaping is altered, so too is forbidden in Syria to reap without changing the procedure. Okay, that's the halacha. If in Eretz Yisrael you protect the land and you want to reap the ground, and you want to reap it, for instance, you're not going to harvest it. You're not going to be able to do it in a normal fashion. And we say the same thing applies in Syria. However, if we talk about that the produce is detached, then already we have then we say you're allowed to do it. Right. Okay. In Eretz Yisrael, even the detached produce you cannot work with for process regularly. You have to process it in a unusual manner. Okay, so now the Mishnah is going to give us examples. What are we talking about? What kind of work in detached produce is permitted, what kind of work in attached produce is forbidden. So we say, when it comes to the detached, dashim, you can thresh, the zairin, you can winnow, the darchen, you could shred, uma'amrin, you could heap. These are the type of works that you can do in the detached produce. These are the works, these are the types of labor that's done in detached produce. Ava loy kaitzrin, you cannot harvest. That's working with the produce while it's still attached to the ground. Loy baitzrin, you can't pick grapes. Loy maiskin, nor can you pick olives. So the Mishna is giving examples of the kinds of things that you could do regularly. The other things you cannot do them regularly. If again, it's a field that was guarded illegally from other people, it was guarded illegally from other people coming in. Okay, the Mishnah concludes, Kalala by Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva made a rule to be able to remember what you can do, what you can't do. Kol shekayotze by mutav Eretz Yisrael. Anything that is permissible to do in Eretz Yisrael, Oisin asay b'Surya, that is what you can do in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva summed up the law for Surya by reducing it to a simple rule, says the Yad Amram. Whatever activity is biblically permitted in the land of Israel, though rabbinically forbidden, is completely permitted in Surya. That's the point. If Minat Torah, you can do what you can do Minat Torah in Eretz Yisrael, that is something that is completely permissible in Surya, even with Rabbanan. Thus, processing produce, which has been cut from an illegally closed field, which in Eretz Yisrael is biblically permitted even in the normal way, the rabbinically requiring a change from the normal procedure, is completely permissible in Surya. Okay, that's the point. The point is that whatever midaraisa Minat Torah you can do with the grain in Eretz Yisrael, even though in Eretz Yisrael it would have been forbidden rabbinically, in Surya you're allowed to do it. You're permitted to do it. And therefore, to sum it up, in Surya, therefore, all post-reaping activities may be performed without any change in method, even for produce coming from an illegally closed field. However, reaping from an illegally closed field, which is biblically prohibited in Eretz Yisrael unless done in a regular fashion, is similarly prohibited in Surya. Okay, in Surya, if we're talking about the mechuber, what's connected to the ground, that we say you cannot do in a regular fashion, just like you wouldn't be able to do in Eretz Yisrael. In Surya, as in Eretz Yisrael, produce deriving from legally open field may be reaped even in the normal manner. That's illegally in a field that was legally open. So then you could reap it in a normal manner, and it goes without saying that normal processing is permitted for this produce. Okay, you could go ahead and even reap it normally. So all the more so, you'd be able to process it like we were talking about winnowing and things like that. And we previously had other Mishnayos that gave examples of what it means when you're going to be harvesting or when you're going to be processing, what's considered unusual and what's considered regular. Okay, that's the conclusion of the Mishnah. Now we're going to Sefer HaMitzvot. Okay, mitzvah and hay. Mitzvahs asay liftais petra chamar zachar b'set. It's a positive commandment to redeem the firstborn male of a donkey with a lamb. Shinamar, as the pasuk says, petra chamar tifdeh b'set. When the Torah is talking about how you treat the firstborn animal of animals mentioned before, we're talking about the firstborn animal of domesticated animals. Now we're talking about a chamor. Now, actually, we're talking about kosher animals before, kosher domesticated animals. Now we're talking about a chamar donkey, which is not a kosher animal, but its firstborn also has to be redeemed. How do you redeem it? You redeem it with a set. You redeem it with a lamb. Okay. The noisin aselakayin. What do you do with this lamb to redeem the donkey, the firstborn donkey? You give it to a kohen. Shnamar, as the pasuk says, "Chopet rechem yelecha." All firstborn of the womb of a donkey, and it's going to be redeemed. It goes to you, meaning it goes to the kohen. The kohenim are Levi and Peturim. A kohen or a Levi who have a firstborn from a donkey are exempt from redeeming it. If a person doesn't have the lamb to redeem it, you can redeem it with the value of a lamb, and you give the value that money, that value to the kohen. Now let's say this firstborn donkey is worth 10 slayim. Yachlav Dais B'Seh Shavadiner. The lamb, you could redeem it even if it's a dinar. That means that you could have a firstborn donkey that is valuable, that has a higher value than the lamb you're redeeming it with. It doesn't make a difference. There doesn't have to be an equal redemption. All you need to do is give the lamb, or the value of the lamb, to redeem the firstborn donkey, no matter what its value is. And again, the Kohanim and Leviim b'turim mizeh, the Kohanim and the Leviim are exempt from this. Right? They are exempt from actually redeeming with a lamb or even without a lamb. The Noeg b'chamakor v'chal zaman, this applies in all places at all times, Sachem and Kevis, both by men and by women. If a man or a woman owns a firstborn donkey, they have an obligation to redeem it. Have a wonderful day. And again, I apologize for the change in color of the picture. Have a great day.